everybody. Welcome to Sonic Talk, episode 562, recording today on Wednesday, the 12th of December. That's right, the 12th of December. One more show. Is it one more show? Yeah. 19th. Yeah, one more show before Christmas, and then we take a break, and we're back on the 2nd of January. Set your diaries and whatnot. This is a music technology podcast. We talk about all things to do with music technology, software, synthesizers, instruments, recording, touring, studio stuff, live production, all of those things. And we've got a bit of an exciting happening today because, first of all, we've got Mr. Rich Hilton from Chic, who is currently actually on the tour bus, live from the tour bus. I'm disappointed that we're not seeing the chandeliers and the swimming pool and the helipad there, Rich. I mean, I guess that perhaps that's not so. You're on your way to... Where are you going, Rich?
I'm headed to Glasgow.
Ah, okay, so quite a long journey. So you're on cellular data in the UK, which is a very ambitious target to go for. But so far, so good. There it is. The said MiFi. Rich, of course, playing keyboards with Chic. How long are you on the road for, Rich?
We've been out a bit over 2 weeks, so we've got about 10 days to go.
Right, okay. So right up until the Christmas thing. Are you back for Christmas at home? Excellent.
I'll be home. I'll be home for Christmas.
Or the Chris Rea. You're driving home for Christmas and all of that stuff. Anyway, Rich, I'm going to turn you down while I introduce everyone because obviously we've got the background noise, technical limitations. So thanks for joining us, Rich. We've also got Mr. Gaz Williams, who's there in Bristol. New mic today, Gaz. Is that a 414?
Yeah. I've used this a few times, but yes, I know I've had it a long time. But it's got
it looks quite authoritarian, doesn't it? It's got square and chunkiness all about it. Sounds good.
Yeah, no, 414 is classic. Ooh, actually. There we go. Is that better? I just realised I was in figure 8, but don't know. Make that much difference.
Yeah, you seem more focused.
Ah, cool.
What you're saying just seems to have more more concentration to it. Yeah.
Cool. Yes, very good. Thank you very much. Nice to be here. Kind of just bracing myself just to get through the dreaded Christmas phase. I really hate Christmas.
Are you a bit grinchy?
Oh, massive grinchy, yeah. It just gets in the way. I've got so many projects on, and it just gets in the way. I'm just like, oh well. I try to, and then it's not. It is all right, really, isn't it? I mean,
it's nice when it stops and you can just kind of chill for a bit. Yeah, I know what you mean. I'm looking forward to the week off between Christmas and New Year. Anyway, Gaz Williams, bass player, music technologist, and various other things. Gaz is going to come and see us. I think later in the week. We're going to have a look at Cubase 10. Yeah. And also we have Mr. Dominic Hawken. Dom Hawken.
Hello.
The lights are on in the studio. So
they are.
Actually, are those Arturia colour bursts you've got on the screen behind you, or are they your own very own?
No, they're just Mac own built-in ones. I think it upgraded to the latest OS, and suddenly those appeared. So I'm still going through just to make sure everything works. But
yeah, always a scary thing. So how's everything going with you?
It's good.
When do you stop?
I don't really stop. I do love Christmas, just to make up for grinchy Gaz. But it's really good in this house. Christmas is really great. But I work from home most of the time anyway. The studio is here at my house, so I don't really stop. And it's nice to kind of pack a lot in. What I do like about Christmas is that just for a couple of days, everything completely just quietens down. You've got a complete excuse to do absolutely nothing but eat. But no, it's been good. It's been good. I was ill last week. I was really gutted. I missed the talk about relaxation stuff because that's what I've been doing almost non-stop. Yeah. That was a real pain. But this week I've really just been doing the Deluge update we briefly mentioned just before the show started backstage. That was a really, really good update. We're getting kind of waveform views, auto sampling, multi-sampling, like amazing stuff. If you point a folder with a bunch of samples in it at various pitches of a piano or whatever, and press go, and it senses the pitch of all the samples, lays it out across the keyboard for you, and you're there. You can go in and change it as well, but literally blat it a bunch of samples, and about 2 seconds later, it's all laid out. That's a beta software at the moment, so I think if anyone wants to check it out, you go on the Facebook group, and they can help you out.
You can ask,
and also, yeah, there's like a beta group on Facebook, but you just have to prove you own one, I think. And Apparillo. I don't know, I mentioned it very briefly. I think it's out as a VST.
So Sugar Bytes.
Yeah, this is out on the iPad this week, and it's the most amazing thing I've ever heard. It's like, I don't know if you can even hear it. It's like
sounds a bit like Rich's bus
machine.
background at the moment, but yeah.
Let's see if I can find something a bit more impressive. It's kind of like a film score in a box.
Neat.
Obviously nowhere close to where Ty is, you know, with the strings and stuff. I'm talking about sort of Blade Runner-esque
textural
kind of patches and textures. It's quite incredible. I've never heard an iPad sound quite like that. I'm sure Gaz will have probably checked it out as well, but really, really impressive. So it's been Apparillo and Deluge this week for me.
Wow, sounds like fun. Okay, well, I did forget to mention, of course, iZotope will be joining us a little bit later on with Prize for iZotope RX7, their excellent audio restoration suite bundle. And, of course, SynchroArts, I'll be letting you know about their sale, which is on until December the 16th, where you can save up to about 37.5% off three of their major products, which are kind of Revoice Pro, Vocaline Pro, and Vocaline Project 3. That's synchroarts.com. Okay, well, let's get stuck in. What's the first one? Oh yeah, now this is interesting. So this is another Kickstarter. This is Modal Craft 2, launched yesterday. This is their little, we had a preview of this. So this is a little monosynth with 8 oscillators, wavetables, 3 ADSRs, 2 LFOs. It's actually quite accomplished. I sort of built upon the DIY one that first came out that I think people were a little bit reticent because it was just snapped together circuit boards. It looks like it wouldn't be that difficult to break, whereas this is a bit more of a Volca sort of styling, I suppose, and in terms of ability. So I won't show you the whole thing, but the interesting thing about this, I mean, this yes, the synth. So this is the craft synth. Is actually like the Sculpt. Oh, it's just going up as we speak. Like the Sculpt, it reached its goal in 24 hours. So this one, they were aiming for 50 grand, and they got 55. And, you know, all well and good, all fun. I mean, I guess people might be interested in that. But the more interesting thing for me about this is the way things are going. Well, the way that things might be going. I don't know. I'll start with, let's go with you, Rich, because then I can turn your mic up. The whole, I know we could Kickstarter, you know, there's all the caveat emptor. It's the sort of the project may or may not be, may not come to fruition. You know, there's all the risks of investment. But I wonder whether we're heading towards a situation where there are trusted companies and they just go via this, because you know, if you know that you're going to pretty much fund yourself, you don't take the risk until you've funded. Where does this leave the distributors? Because distributors, like music stores, are going out of business left, right and centre now. And I can imagine music stores even contributing to Kickstarter campaigns so that they get the stock early. So they end up supporting the products that they're going to get in their shops. It just seems like a really interesting new model is emerging here.
Well, and music retailers do participate in online sales, both through eBay, through Amazon, and a whole bunch of other ways. And certainly they all have their own websites as well to support their retail operations. And I don't think this is actually going to spell the demise of retail. However, I do think it's interesting, and I think your point is well taken about cutting out the middleman. And obviously, Modal would have a tremendous amount to lose by failing to deliver on something for which they collected money. So people do, because they are a known company with some lose by screwing up, people would have perhaps a little more faith than if one of us advertised a candelabra set or something. But and it sounds great. Now, they must have been very successful. They must be very successful with this, and I'm glad for them because it's kind of cool products. Although I've never operated one, and I wonder about having all of these multiple parameters underneath 10 knobs, but that don't change their leg weight. But I'm sure you get used to it, and I'm sure you get fast on it. It sure does sound nice.
Yeah, no, I would agree with that. I think it's interesting though, Gaz, isn't it? I mean, whatever you think of, you know, modal products or whatever, I mean, just this whole notion of moving directly to communicate with the customers, and then essentially the stores become customers of yours just like everybody else. And then they invest because, you know, you could buy 10 or 20 of them. I mean, it doesn't happen so much on this one, but I know on Sculpt you could buy 10 packs of things. So you end up in a situation where you get the kind of dealer discount, and you also get the stuff in the stores before anybody else, because these do go to dealers anyway, but it just means that you get the kind of exclusivity, I suppose. It's an interesting idea.
Yeah, and it just really works as a promotional kind of campaign as well, doesn't it? Because how long has this got left to run? It's got a while, hasn't it now? So it's
January
like
the 9th, yeah.
Yeah. So, and actually, I mean, we haven't actually touched on the price of this. I don't know if there's any of those early birds left, but they were like 99 quid, weren't they? I think they may all be gone now, but I think the next tier up is 100.
There are still some, actually. There are still some 99, 108.
Which, I mean,
non-EU 108. So the EU is, that's in the US. 119 if you're in the EU because of VAT.
Oh, gotcha. So I mean, it's a very compelling product for that price, isn't it? I mean, when the Craft first came out with the like kind of clipped together one, there was a lot of issues with that. I think sound wise, I think was good, but it would just like the weight of the cable
drift across the table, yeah.
Yeah, things like that, and I mean, like following on from the sculpt, there's a really strong visual identity. I mean, there was a strong visual identity with the Craft version 1, but unfortunately, it was not a very nice visual identity. So this one now is a really it's very distinctive, and as well as you know, and as many people now know, that these new generation of modals sound very, very full and rich and don't sound like in any way a budget instrument. And I think that the guys there at Modal have done a really great job of making an intuitive interface too. I love the way that the LED lights kind of can work to, because those endless encoders, whichever that you adjust.
More so on the sculpt, I would say. I think it's a little bit more finicky on the Craft Synth too, but that's it's cheaper. So
okay. Yeah. I mean, but it's packed full of stuff, isn't it? And it's also going to have the same type of editor as well. So, so I mean, so this has slightly changed the topic. I was talking more about the synth here, but I think it's. I mean, like the Kickstarter thing definitely is a bit weird, isn't it? Because people are kind of going to think, is this product ready for market? I mean, it is absolutely ready for market, though, isn't it? It purely is. Well,
I suppose the thing is the other thing to point out is, obviously that we got a Kickstarter the other day, which is like, I don't know, 6 months late or whatever. The point is, if you get to that situation where you got your chops together, so you go, the Kickstarter ends on this date, then we know after that it's going to be exactly this amount of time, because I think they pulled it off with Sculpt. In fact, they were a bit early with that. So, I mean, whoever it is that does it, if you can get that, Kickstarter ends, product's ready, and you can just go, and there isn't any hold-ups. I mean, there are always hold-ups, but if you can be kind of pretty much do what you said you were going to do, then it starts to become very viable, and people just kind of go, yeah, all right. Because, I mean, essentially, most manufacturers are going to be giving X percent, I don't know, 20, 30%, I don't know whatever it is, some variant of percentage to a distributor and then to the retailer. This way, it just goes direct, and they're cutting out that kind of thing. So, I mean, it must be very appealing from a manufacturer point of view to do it this way as well, I'd imagine. Yeah,
so, yeah, totally. So, I mean, but... what do we know about so Modal, all the Craft and the Sculpt, they are just going to be available in regular mainstream.
They just
shops
start on
well.
Kickstarter.
Start this way. Well, yeah, it's good, I suppose. But I mean, as I say though, the synth itself, if you haven't checked it out, definitely check it out though, because it is
it does sound pretty nice actually.
And there's some interesting ideas, isn't there, on the it's not just like a standard subtractive synthesizer. Well, I guess it is, but
it's a wave. It's got a bunch of WO2 stuff, waves in there as well, and whatnot. And it's got that really nice, even though it's digital distortion, it sounds. I mean, because I used one when we did our little jam thing at the event, and it sounded big. I mean, I didn't hear what it sounded like on the PA because I was behind it, but I think there's plenty of stuff there, right?
Do you think though that doing this is going to sort of make the brand appear more, because they were originally top
draw,
very expensive, high end.
I don't know. I mean, it depends on what comes next, I suppose. I know, Dominic. I mean, you have a background in entrepreneurial kind of endeavours. I mean, the Kickstarter route, does that make the most sense? I mean, it's the least amount of risk until you actually have to press the button, because if you don't get the money, you don't have to do it.
Exactly, it's the least risky, but there's a huge amount that don't get to raise the finance. So I think your point about it's risk based on the amount of money you're prepared to put in to buy something. So you might put $2,000 in if it's something amazing, but not many people would do. And these kind of products at £150 are quite tempting because it's not a huge amount of money to lock up for something that is really funky. But I was reading, I mean, they make quite a big deal in their video that the last one, the Craft, they shipped 1,000 of them within 3 minutes of the Kickstarter campaign closing. And it's that reliability of like, I am going to get this thing. I probably can't stand up and wave a flag and say, I'm Dominic Hawken and I've made this thing.
I think it was 3 months actually, not 3 minutes.
Oh, was it within 3 minutes? Oh, okay.
Slightly different, but still, that's what they said they were going to do. That's incredible. That's what they said they were going to do.
I have to relook at the video because it sounded very much like minutes. Anyway, but the point is you've got this. It's a bit like the Amazons and the eBays. You end up with, if it's a reliable supplier with a track record, then really they have absolutely nothing to lose. They're always going to price it in such a point where it's going to be fulfilled. The embarrassment comes if they did something and they didn't hit the target money, really, and that's actually sort of brand damaging. But you can't really fail with this one. I think from your point about retail, I mean, retail in this industry for me was mostly about going to try things out. You could go to somewhere and they had one of everything, and you could check out your synth and you could annoy the people in the shop playing your synth riffs, and then kind of try out the one you got. Nowadays, clearly people just order stuff and kind of send it back if it's not right, or go with YouTube reviews and that kind of thing. So the idea of having a retailer is sort of less relevant, sadly. I mean, what are you buying? You're buying returns, some kind of guarantee with local service, and advice, really. And all of that is very valid, but whether or not the retailers want to pay an extra 25, 40% sometimes in terms of retailer margin on that stuff, it's I don't know, it's just becoming very, very irrelevant now, I think.
It's very difficult. Yeah, I mean, I think that's it. And you can see there's always going to be someone who's prepared to think, well, the bigger numbers, smaller margin. And that's why we're seeing these conglomerates of I mean, I think it was Red Dog in the UK that filed for not bankruptcy, but they went out of business, and they were looking good, so it's just the people who've got their stuff together. But in terms of this, you have, as long as you've got your thing together, then you're going to be okay. I mean, the problem comes when you launch the Kickstarter and the product isn't really finished, and you've left some of the things that need to be done are the wrong things that you've left till later on, so you need to have as much of it done as possible, so that really all you're doing is deciding things like, maybe some of the OS issues. But if you've got actual core features that you're gonna run into a stumbling block, because we've seen it loads of times, haven't we, with products that just kind of go, I'm sorry, we ran into this issue and that issue, and then it could be years, and I still get ones where I'm still getting emails from projects I've forgotten about like 2 years ago that's saying this is our latest update, and you just think, well, kind of I feel for them because they must be burning cash, but it's just what can you do?
The chord bots are good. A good story, though. It's a good example of this, though. That the stretch goals. It was really successful on Kickstarter, and it reached its stretch goal of being like a super chord bot, which sort of doubled up on the knobs and made a color screen, and of course that meant that all of the designs that they'd done for the existing model were they almost had to go back to the beginning again once the kind of Kickstarter was over. So they were that much further back in the process than they would have been. So that means that people have to then wait who've invested into it. But that, I guess, is the thing with Kickstarter, isn't it? The people who pay into a Kickstarter, you are going in with that kind of caveat that you may be waiting some time.
Yeah, it's interesting. But anyway, I just thought, it's great to know about the Craft, and I'm glad we got the first look at it, but the model itself is the interesting part. I think I'm just going to quickly, because I did rather cock up on the on a word from our sponsor. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about SynchroArts. You've got a sale on till December the 16th. You could get basically 30% off Vocaline Pro, which is really useful for lining up and thickening vocals and backing vocals and doubling. You've got 37% off Vocaline Pro 4, Revoice Pro, and Vocaline Project 3, which are various different versions of similar technologies, but a lot of people absolutely swear by. I forget now. Somebody last week just sort of said it completely changed the project they were working on, and just said it. I think it was maybe Robbie just said it was. No, I forget. I'm misrepresenting. Just said that absolutely works. So if you want to check that out, go over to synchroarts.com, and the sale's on until December the 16th. Right. Let's have a look. I'm going to do this one because I just think this is grand. So this is a new soft synth. There's a couple of soft synths this week. Actually, UVI have released their model of the Voyetra 8. Which is a very rare beast. I think it was an American polysynth, 8-voice polysynth, with digital control and electronics. I saw one once in a studio, but I've never heard it before. And this is it has a very unique sound, which I hope I will display. It's PXVA, 8-voice analog powerhouse. I think it is $49, reduced from 79, so it's reasonably priced. And as we know, UVI, They license a lot of their technology to other people, like their filters and their core engines. Do a lot of really good stuff. So anyway, that's there. Okay, first question is, who has ever... I'm going to come to you first, Rich, because it's an American synth, right? The Voyetra 8. Did you ever get your hands on one?
Yes, once.
Once.
and I've been around them a little bit more than that. Yeah, they were made in Long Island City, right across the East River from Manhattan, in New York. At Octave Plateau. And,
that's right.
They had a companion keyboard that was also available as a strap-on sort of thing. I think Edgar Winter may have actually used this thing briefly in his world, doing the strap-on keyboard stuff. And it was an analog synth made on Long Island, you can say. It was a nice product, had a unique sound, didn't sound like Oberheim or Roland or Moog or any of that, so it sort of took in its day a sort of almost, some might object to this, a second tier sort of polyphonic synth status, which, believe it or not, is also where the Korg PSs were kind of viewed in there. I mean, nobody could afford them anyway, and there weren't that many of them. But these were kind of the oddball second. And when I say second tier, I don't mean not as good. I just mean not as well marketed.
Yeah, I know what you mean. Yeah.
So anyway, yes, I did come across them once or twice. I have played one once, and it was a nice little analog synth.
And of course, programmable, Dominic. I don't know whether or not you ever got your hands on one. I remember, I think the only time I ever saw one, when back in the days when it was Tom's Diner was there, and we'd gone to America to work with Suzanne in her apartment and her studio, and the guy that was producing her stuff had a Voyetra, and I remember seeing it and go, ooh, I've never seen one of those before, and that was about as far as I got. I never actually listened to it or anything, but that was the closest I ever got to one.
Never seen one in real life. I mean, it sounds nice, doesn't it? I'm a bit bored of everything vintage being remade. So, what else can you find? As long as it was made kind of 30 years plus away, let's do that. I mean, yes, it's great. It's something we've never heard. It gives another flavour, gives another colour. I'm not actually knocking this particular release, but the absolute kind of fandom of anything vintage has always lost a bit of sparkle for me, mainly because I bought most of that kit when it first came out, and some of it wasn't really that good. And some of it was great, but I worked for the London Rock Shop selling synths, and I know what we used to laugh at. And the only one we got wrong was the TB303, which we used to have to we drew straws as to who was going to demo that because it was so complicated. But other than that, it's just because it's vintage doesn't make it sound good. This is an interesting thing from a historical perspective. And actually, 49 quid, who can argue? The trouble with these things, that like the thing that we just looked at, the Kickstarter, £99, £49, they're just so easy to buy. And then by the time you look at this kind of big, massive little things all over the desk, you could have bought a Moog 1.
Well, perhaps, yeah. I think you'd need to save up a little bit more than that. I've got a demo here, Gaz. This is on the UVI, and this is another classic example of what the French seem to be very good at electronic funk. This is of its era, isn't it? Oh yeah, baby.
Those sounds are really hip at the moment.
Are they really in? It's like Chromio,
Yeah,
isn't it? And that sort of stuff.
Yeah, it's super hip with the younguns. That sounds great actually. Who was that was on the Voyatra demo?
Yeah, that's a chap called that's PXV8 showcased by Lewis Suka. Nice work, Lewis.
Yeah. So a new audio series, didn't they? I think the Voyatras. Is that right?
Is that right? Oh, did they?
So yeah,
I did not know that.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure they were for a while as well. But yeah, I mean, it's one of those things. There's always been a little bit of a mystery, hasn't it? This, I think there was lots of things that were quite ahead of its time, wasn't it? It was obviously digital controlled analog synth, like MIDI control of like every parameter.
Yeah.
Sort of quite a lot of sophistication really for its time. So I think, interestingly, Voyatra merged with Turtle Beach, didn't they?
Really? So they ended up in Sound Blaster land and didn't give a toss about synths anymore because they made so much money on cheap sound cards, right?
I reckon, yeah, that's probably what happened. But so I don't know. I think it's nice actually for this to make a kind of return and. That's a good price point, though, isn't it? That's really
that does seem rude. You are absolutely right. You've obviously been on Vintage Synth Explorer doing your research, or you knew this anyway. I don't know. But there is actually, if I play this, there's a great demo here by Dr. Mix. So this is him doing video because apparently it was used on the Buggles track. So let's see what it sounds like.
Yes.
It does sound quite nice, actually, when he gets going. Oh, yeah, baby. Oh, so he got the UVI Golden version, which Oh, yeah. I mean, that is, that's classic 80s sound, I suppose. And I guess it was one of those things that, programmable synthesizers, I don't know how much it was to begin with, actually. I mean, but anyway, it's from UVI. You can buy it now, and that's kind of cool, I guess. But yeah, you're right about that, Dominic. Sorry? It wasn't cheap.
No, it was not cheap. They had the cat and the kitten on the market as their cheaper monophonics, and this thing was not cheap. It was at least a couple of grand.
Wow, okay. You're very, very
sure.
dark, Rich. I'm almost unable to make you out, which is maybe the look you're going for, but it may not be. Might just need to move. There we go.
Hey.
Rich back in his full glory. Yeah, I'm sure it was kind of pricey, but I guess the thing about it though must have been it was great for touring because it was rack mountable and you could put a bunch of them together. Right then, so that's the Voyatra 8 and the Dr. Mix, and yes, we've got another synth. So maybe this will sort you out, Dom, because this is a new synth. This is the Arturia Pigments, which there was a very enjoyable. Let me see if I can find. It's getting very arty. And this has two synth engines with, I think one's advanced wavetable and one is sort of triple analog oscillator, and some really interesting modulation stuff actually, as well as it's got 3 LFOs and 3 envelopes, but it's also got these function generators, which are like mathematical transformation engines that can move along Bezier curves and sequences and sample. And that's the thing that's kind of quite interesting. All these kind of sequences. I actually got a copy of this. I won't play the whole thing, although I nearly did. So Dominic, okay, so here's something new software. Does this kind of get this something that gets you a bit more excited, right?
Yeah, it does. I mean, and don't get me wrong, there's nothing wrong with emulating stuff, but when you stop at the point where it's emulated, you're missing a whole trick. It's like the boutique SH101 from Roland. You can, I think it's 4-voice paraphonic or something, and you can do extra stuff. You can stick it into unison mode and it sounds better. So if you're going to make a synth like that, then put in some extra stuff, and the modulation on this sounds good. I have not played with it. I checked it out on some YouTube stuff, and I really like the look of it. I really like the interface, the graphical interface that shows you the way that pretty much the LFOs and all those waveforms, what they're actually doing, which is brilliant. And I guess would be a great thing to put on a whole bunch of VSTs now, because there are so many modulation options now going around on some of these synths that it's kind of impossible to remember what's patched to where. Funnily enough, the Deluge has a really good one where, you know, you hit a parameter and it will light up in its own way what is affecting that parameter, which is a good start. But this is great. So you can see the shape of the waveforms, you can see what they're applied to, you can see their speed, and you can drag them around. So there's that really funky
all along that middle. You can't really see it there. It's not very clear on the, I don't think, but all of it, there's a middle band, which is every single function in there has got a constantly updating window that shows you all of the modulation stuff, which is, I think, what you mean.
That's right. And the waveform along the bottom that you showed there as well, you can drag, not just raise it up and lower it, you can move different points on that waveform, and it'll move like this. So it's really good. It doesn't sound like the world's most earth-shattering synth on the market. It doesn't sound bad at all, but just the way that you can configure it and the way that you can use modulation, I think that's great. And there's nothing to stop people adding that kind of stuff into their retro vintage remakes to just give it an extra breath of life, really. I was just trying to think. It's rare to find a new plugin that isn't a remake, that everyone jumps up and down and goes, you know, this must be a must-have plugin. Whereas you get, this is a great emulation of the Moog, or this is a fabulous emulation of a whatever. And there was, is it Altiverb? I can never remember, the amazing reverb plugin that is genuinely a new reverb plugin. And there's things like Deverb, which is kind of modeled on lots of different analog old synths anyway. But I think it's about time that there was stuff like this with great user interfaces and that just make brilliant sounds. But the Apparillo actually was great. It's in the way that, you know, you press a key and you suddenly go, whoa, this sounds great. And you can get in there and slide things about and affect it, you know. And I think, so I guess my beef is not so much that everything's an emulation. It's just they never take it any further than emulating it and going, gosh, doesn't that sound exactly like that keyboard you bought in 1978?
Yeah, I see what you mean.
You know.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, they've got a bunch of SEM different models in there. There's the SEM filter model, which actually does sound really nice. I mean, this is but it's a fair point. I mean, we've talked about this before, like with Steinberg and Cubase. You know, there are DAWs that sort of push ahead and push the envelope, and then some of those features and kind of concepts are then taken on by other people. And I wonder if that's what Arturia are aiming for here, because they made a big splash about the fact that this isn't an emulation. It's their first unique instrument. I don't know if it's ever, but for certainly a very long. I can't think of any other ones. I suppose Spark would have been the last time they did something unique, you know, that wasn't an emulation direct.
Yeah, good point. I mean, you know, some of the kind of hyperboles are a bit full on, isn't it? This that, and I you know, and I always don't see the logic in that, because it makes you kind of just go, come on, tone it down a bit. You know, it's going to change the way you make music and all stuff like that. And it's like, yeah. But however, you know, that's not to say, I think it does look really good. It reminded me of a few things slightly. The interface a little bit reminded me a little bit of Overbridge, the first version of Overbridge.
Oh yeah, I know what you mean. Yeah.
And also the other thing it reminds me a little bit of is something that sort of slipped out a bit unsung, really, which is the Korg Electribe Wave, which is an iPad-only app. And there's a few ideas which look slightly similar. I mean, they're, you know, very different things again, but just some of the ideas and some of the animations of the modulators and stuff. And also, when you're talking about being able to see what all the modulators are doing, that did actually make me think about that little panel on the Medusa, the Polyend thing, because that little panel is really informative. You've got 5 LFOs and 5 envelopes, and just with very, very simple animation, you can see what all 10 modulators are doing at any point. Very clever little way of doing that. But this, I haven't actually tried it. Oh God! I mean, I'm probably in a similar boat to many people in that I've got some, you know, I often mention something like, say, Omnisphere or whatever, and I always feel a bit guilty with Omnisphere that I've only ever used 0.04% of that software's potential. You know, so it's you know.
You feel
all
that
these
if you were going to spend any more time with another instrument, you should go back to that rather than try it with something else, right?
a little bit. It's just going to add more to my. It's going to add more to my guilt of like not
More
feeling
stuff,
I'm actually getting to the bottom of things. But however, as I say, don't be too down on this. It does look really cool, and similar to that Waves. What was that new Waves synth?
Yes, the FM one. I can't remember what it's called.
Yeah, I think that's
it's new. Yeah, something new again, isn't it? It's a
good,
bit more
good interfaces. Yeah, and new. But good. Yeah, looks pretty decent.
Excellent. Rich, you're looking like the Godfather now. You look like you could say something that like Al Pacino might say, and we'd all cringe and just say yes, boss, whatever. That's a very moody shot. I like that. I don't know. Do you find that when soft sifts come out, you're kind of do you get excited about that sort of stuff? I mean, is this something that you kind of think that's cool?
I think it's interesting to see Arturia releasing a synth that's not an emulation of something else, and I'm equally in the fact that our dear friend Jamie Liddell is part of their marketing campaign and speaks very positively. And I really haven't heard it very much, so I don't have a lot to say about it per se, but a cool software wavetable synth is welcome in my world, and I look forward to hearing it and deciding whether they're giving it away for a limited period of time to use until mid-January.
That's true,
whereby I'm sure they'll want your money or say goodbye. And on that same tip that Gaz was just on, simultaneous with the release of this was the update to Yuhi's Hive, which added transwave capabilities and a few other things as well, and apparently greatly expanded the sonic potential of that instrument. So they are sort of competing on a feature level with something that's a product designed to display that feature. So marketing-wise, it comes to be an interesting comparison. I really am fond of Yuhi's stuff very much. I like Arturia, and I use it as well. So I look forward to hearing it.
Yeah, absolutely. It seems like Wavetable people have been banging a Wavetable at us for ages and ages and ages. Maybe now it's becoming a thing that we can certainly enjoy. Right, I'm going to quickly have a little message from iZotope, because now you could win a copy of RX7.
RX continues to be the industry standard and leader in audio repair for music and post-production. And with RX7, we've introduced groundbreaking new ways to quickly and easily fix and manipulate audio. Take the game-changing Repair Assistant, an intelligent helper that can detect noise, clipping, clicks, hum, and more. Also new in RX7 is Music Rebalance, a powerful source separation tool. Drums too loud? Vocals not loud enough? Let's fix that. You can also create instrumental versions of songs by removing the vocal elements. You can now alter the pitch without affecting the timing of your audio, and conversely, alter the time without affecting the pitch with the new variable time and variable pitch modules. Using the new dialogue contour, you can improve the performance of a line or even create a new performance by altering the pitch contour of the dialogue, therefore adjusting the intonation of the speaker, and introducing Dialogue Dereverb, a module powered by machine learning to reduce the presence of reverberations around dialogue. RX7, a new frontier in audio repair.
And of course, you can get hold of that if you just go to iZotope.com and download the 10-day free demo. Speaking of demos, yes, Rich was right. The Arturia Pigments you get to download for free and use till January the 10th, I think it is, or I forget, it's something around, and it's totally free. Obviously, you'll get nagged and you'll probably have to buy it after that. But anyway, let's get on. We've got a competition, and we have a competition this week. You can win a copy of our iZotope RX7. We're looking for the hashtag RXCanFixIt and the hashtag RX7 to @Sonicstate and @iZotope Inc. That is via Twitter. So the hashtag RXCanFixIt as one word, and the hashtag RX7 to @Sonicstate now @iZotope Inc. And you can check that out. And we'll announce the winner next week. Also, we've got a winner from last week's show, and this is a guy called Ben, who is @Ben352534. 3570. Always a difficult one to, and he's actually, this is a bit of a challenge. I don't know if I'm going to get the time for this. It's his happened to be, I challenge you, Nick and Gaz, to make a transcontinental track with me. I'll make and send the stems or MIDI, and you two could get inspired and make the mix. Intro and outro, 24-hour limit, challenge accepted. Love the show. Unfortunately, I don't have 24 hours spare at the moment, but I don't know. We may well get in touch. I don't know what you think about that, Gaz. We're all a bit busy, but yeah, maybe without the time limitation, we could do something.
I like the time limitation. But yeah, why not? That sounds like a laugh.
Yeah, it could be fun. So anyway, Ben, if you want to get in touch, Ben 352535570. If you get in touch, you will be have your prize delivered to you. Okay, right now I don't know which one to go for next. I think we sort of have to have this. This is the legendary story. Dave Bristow. I keep calling it Eric. Eric, of course, is a darts player.
Dave Bristow, and we are at my little home.
Legendarily, Dave Bristow came up with the 100 and together with his colleague, came up with 128 patches for the DX7. They thought they were doing 32, and they'd taken like months to do 16 each. And they turn up in Japan going, yeah, it'll be all right. We'll have a couple of days to voice them, get the levels right. And then the Japanese said, oh, by the way, we've got 128 memory slots, so can you fill them up? And they had basically a week.
History about how that all worked back in the 1980s.
There's a
for how FM operators contributed to.
I'm just going to fast forward it.
Have a couple of days in Japan to polish them.
Here we go.
Make the 32 sounds for the factory, which is what they wanted. Anyway, we show up, and I can remember that first meeting on Monday morning in the studio. Bristow-san, Leuenberger-san, we have news for you. Oh, thank you. What is the news? We have decided for 128 presets, not 32. So, my jaw drops. I've been spending months developing these 16 sounds for the DX7, the same with Gary. And so we said, okay, rolled our sleeves up. We better start now, because they literally had to be ready by the end of the week.
That's such a classic, and it's become legendary. I've never actually heard it from his mouth. He seems like a really nice chap, but this sort of brings out a number of different things, I think. It's that gig you thought you had covered, and you realise you're so far away from what you thought you were doing, and you only have 2 hours to get the Penguins' money, in the immortal words of the Blues Brothers. There are always those kind of gigs, right? I'm guessing, Gaz, this must have happened to you in the past. You show up for one thing and you think you got it covered, and suddenly it's something completely different. But Dave Bristow and it's Gary Lundberg. Good on them. That they were the first programmers who got dumped in that kind of doo-doo, right?
God, yeah. And I was thinking about this. It's an interesting little interview, and I was just thinking about just how influential that week has ended up being, or those few days have ended up being on the entire sound of the 1980s. Like really influential if you think about how much those sounds just changed the sonic palette. But yeah, God, it happens all the time. I say yes to everything regardless of my abilities. So I'm always coming, trying to figure it out.
Some people thrive on that. That's fine.
I think so. I think, when you have to kind of, you have to step it up and you have to get something done within a time frame, it sort of focuses you in a way that gets a bit of the adrenaline, a bit of the intensity going, which is kind of good. And you want to have that when you're making, especially in creative pursuits. But God. Yeah, but I have been caught out many times as well, though. So yeah, it doesn't always work.
I suppose there's that. Here's a little interlude. The interview was actually for a chap called Cult Sounds. I'm trying to remember his name. Is it Emmanuel Brockhouse? I think he's called. And this is just basically the DX7 piano sound. There are other examples. So the DX7, 1980 to sort of 1992, the number of songs that use the DX7 sound, it peaked around 43 in 1986. As you can see, that it was released, I think, 1983, 1984. So he's got all sorts of interesting factoids in there. But yeah, I don't know, Rich. That sort of gig, good on them, because that must have been so unfamiliar. But yeah, that Are you a guy that likes to be prepared, or do you like that kind of jumping in at the deep end and seeing what comes out?
I like to be prepared, and a tremendous percentage of my career has been involved in jumping in the deep end. So, I mean, you can only prepare for so much, and then hopefully you've got a skill set that will allow you to deal with what comes. And I mean, I guess one way to put it is, I work with a guy who's I love dearly. There's a brand new album, a brand new Chic album that's just come out. It's 2018. There's a song on it that we started in 1998.
Wow. Okay.
So I'm used to things not having a finite conclusion as you're working on them, and being in that sort of creative place of not having to finish 1 second before you think it's done. I don't know if that relates to your point, but that, in my mind, it does. So, both prepare and then get ready, because it's coming. Whatever it is, you don't know what it is.
That's true. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I don't know, Dominic, whether you have a similar, I mean, you must have, when we all started out doing session stuff and the gear was new, none of us really knew how it worked. So there's that bit when somebody says, can you do this? I mean, it's the classic engineer thing, isn't it? Everybody, when they first go into the studio, they want the engineer to advise them and tell them what to do. Whereas the engineer is probably not going to do that. He's going to go, well, you could, I guess.
Yeah.
They're very
absolutely.
Whereas sometimes you've got to be that person that just goes, yeah, all right, I'll do it. Let's go.
Quite. I mean, I bluffed my way in somehow when I very first started. I found myself engineering and producing a couple of kind of bands that I was sort of musically directing, I suppose, in town, and really not knowing. I learned in the studio on other people's time, effectively. And like my first time on an SSL, I'd said I'd worked it before, and all I'd done was watch a couple of other engineers using it. And just kind of, you've got to drop yourself in there, really. I'm not sure how easy that would be this time. It's a very peculiar set of circumstances and a lot of luck back then. But I mean, I suppose Dave Bristow, very quickly, I mean, what a guy. I was just going to say the same as Gaz. Those sounds are quite incredible. I met him a couple of times. He did some demos for Yamaha on the DX7, and I remember he used to make a lot of use of external controllers, pedals, and they had this, I don't know if you remember it, an orange, it looked like an orange, a squeezy ball, which was like a breath controller that used to plug into the front, or there was a breath socket, I think, on the DX7, all sorts of weird and wonderful stuff. And it was almost like, what's he going to bring next time? So he'd have 3 pedals and the breath controller, and you kind of expect him to have a kind of bagpipe interface underneath this arm or something as he's playing this kind of stuff. And the sound, because obviously he spent so long working on those sounds that all of the ways of changing those sounds, after touch and all the rest of it was what really was exciting him at that time. And I know a lot of those sounds that they did in the 2 weeks ended up in the first 32 patches. It wasn't like let's just add on a bunch after the 32. And I think I like to be really organized, and I definitely don't work very well when I'm really organized. It's you've got to drop me in it, and the best creative stuff comes out when you've got to finish it. You've got to send it off to the band or the A&R guy or the label. Certainly songwriting. You start writing a song and you've got no deadline on it, you'll end up finishing the 1988 song in 2018 or whatever. When you've got a band that you're working with or an artist that you're working with that needs the album, has only got 10 days before they're back on tour again, and you've got to do a song a day, you do a song a day, and actually, 1 or 2 of those can work out really well. That's what I found anyway. If you're up for it and you're in the mood, actually forcing yourself to do something under pressure is a lot more creative. And you get that sometimes working with other people who work writing songs solo and working on their own. It's a good thing to do, to go and find someone to write with, because you spur off of each other a lot. They'll force you to chuck away the ideas that you'd probably hold on to, but aren't actually that good, But yeah, organized. I think like Rich, organized, but thrive on chaos, really.
Yeah, I think that makes a fair point. The concept, so that how it works and where it is, but you just don't know what you're going to have to do with it when the time comes. Because
sound design, though, is something that's difficult to get to I went away to a studio for 3 days to design some patches for Electron Analog 4, and I came back after 3 days, I think, with about 16 patches, like feeling really kind of like I'd done really terrible. I wanted to try and get 128 patches in the 3 days, and I managed 16. And I was talking to my good friend and legend that is Howard Scarr, and I was telling him a story, going, no, 16's good going for 3 days, so it's just, I think in my naivety, I thought that I could kind of get, just like I'll create a bass patch, and then I'll create, say, 16 variants of that bass patch. But then when you're trying to get that bass patch working and you're working with the modulators and all the different things, you realize you just spent sort of half a day on that bass patch, and it's like, okay, sound design is
I guess it depends what you want to do. I mean, I find the same thing. Because what I've started to do myself now is when I've got a synth in for review, there's a period where I have it sort of here, and I just mess it. And if it's got memories, I save, and then sometimes I go, oh, I've got nearly a bank of sounds there that could be of use to somebody. I'll give them away or whatever at some point. I never really get round to it, but I mean, I sort of feel like if a synth draws that out of you, then it's probably good. It's a good instrument, even if not everything is super complicated, but if it just sort of takes you in a direction, you just go, oh, that's nice, I like that sound, and then you kind of tweak that sound for a bit longer and it turns into something else, and you always end up with squawk pad 1 2 3 4 5 6, and they're all a bit the same. Then you probably could have just assigned some sort of macro to it to move between all of those sounds rather than have all of the individual ones. But yeah, I mean, it's a sign of a good instrument that allows you to do that. But that's interesting what you were saying, Dominic, about the controllers, because the DX7 was the only one with aftertouch apart from the other ones. I mean, they dropped it down to the 21 and the 11 and stuff, and they didn't even have velocity, and they went to 4 operators. So the actual performance aspect of it must have been a really big deal. And it's interesting. When I had the Reface here, I mapped Reface DX with just 4 ops. But I mapped it to one of the Behringer BCR rotary encoders, and I was able to do lots of real-time stuff with the knobs. And it's not something you automatically think you would do with FM, but it actually is a really powerful tool specifically for FM, because you can radically change the sound without generalized mappings. It's quite an interesting way of working, particularly when you're changing the harmonics and the blend between them and the feedback. So maybe it didn't really get explored all that much. And that's what he was obviously into, but it didn't really end 100%. Up being all that 100%. Used.
I mean, when you've done that amount of work, and you're playing the sound, and no one's actually twisting the mod wheel or giving it the aftertouch or pushing the effects pedal or whatever. I'm sure the DX7 had a breath input as well. I could be wrong.
It did. Yeah, I'm pretty sure
it did. Yes, and that no one ever did that, right? Apart from your man. It must be heartbreaking. And you see, actually, Omnisphere is good for that. A lot of the patch names will be "try the mod wheel," or "press harder on this," because there's so much work. Exactly. Wait till the end. You've got to stay till the end. So yeah, it must be heartbreaking. And it's really only that the video that we watched with the Omnisphere guy with his CS80 aftertouch going on that suddenly got me excited and all that, reapproaching all these sounds that I've got that actually breathe life into these things as well. So maybe there's a shorthand for tracks as well. So you could have a track which is kind of I really love you, but wait till the second chorus. It's like, no, honestly, it's not all happening in the first 8 bars. Wait till bar 48, it gets really good then. It's like clickbait for tunes.
That's a great idea. I like the sound of that. Yes, but it's good. It's jolly good fun, that whole concept. I mean, I don't know, Rich. The whole FM thing is quite impenetrable, and to think that he managed to pull all that off, it's just in that short period of time, it is impressive.
They should give him an FME award.
Ah, very good.
You're not familiar with the Emmy Awards, I guess, over there. But,
Emmys. They go to don't Emmys go to journalists?
I think it's a great idea.
Yeah, I think Emmys go to journalists. I'm not sure. In fact, actually, speaking of which, there's not speaking of which at all, but what I'm going to do is, I'm going to finish up because I got this great video sent to me from a chap called, now let me see, what's he called? Steve Learson. It's a Shaker Egg Sonic Lab review, and he sent it to me yesterday. I mean, God knows where he finds the time, and it's like a spoof. So it's basically him dressed up a bit like me, but looking a lot more healthy and fitter, doing a kind of spoof Sonic Lab review, and he posted that. I think is it this one? Yeah,
hello, welcome to another Sonic Lab. I'm your host, Nick Bat. In all my reviews, I find a way to be both fair yet brutal. Today is a
I recommend you watch that. I'll post a link to it in the show notes because it's quite long. It's about it's 2.5 minutes or so, but it's fun. And he does mention PWM, and he also mentions Sing Song Harmonics. So I'm very pleased with that. So I don't know if have I reached some kind of watershed in my career where I'm getting parodied? I mean, I think that's the first time where it's properly happened that somebody's gone to all of that effort. To be honest, but
have you been asked for autographs yet?
Maybe. No, photo. Lots of selfies. Selfies happens. We get a lot of that, Gaz, don't we? When we go to Super Booth or whatever. Selfies. Yeah. You probably get more actually. You're you're selfie worthy. But yeah, good, jolly good fun. I'll stick a link to that in the show notes because and I wanted to make sure that he knew that I wasn't offended in any way. You know, I actually think it's quite funny. So yes, jolly good. And in these times, it's nice to know that we can laugh about some things because, frankly, there's absolutely nothing else to laugh about, certainly in this country. But I won't go there. We'll see what happens.
Well, we can have a look at that OpenDeck thing, Nick, because that was very
did you want to see that? Does anyone? Well, do we have time, Richie? Are you about to dock in Glasgow? Whereabouts are you?
Oh, we're stuck in traffic. I don't think we're anywhere near Glasgow.
Good. You seem to be stuck in traffic where the signal's good as well, which is really perfect. So that's awesome. I was
up for plate reverbs as well, but
up for plate reverbs. Yeah,
that's
man,
good.
There's just so many topics. Maybe we can have one of those next week because it's getting on time wise. All right, let's have a look. I've got that here somewhere. OpenDeck. Right, this was literally a guy sent me the. Let me see. What's it called? Have I got to the wrong? OpenDeck. Here we go. Essentially he's. He just emailed me earlier to say, can I advertise? And I said, what's this product? And I looked at it, and essentially this is like a board, a piggyback board that will go on various Arduino products, and it's like loads and loads of, they look like just sort of digital GPIO pins, which are just pins that just kind of go plug LEDs in, or switches, or knobs, or faders, or whatever. And it's got an operating system called OpenDeck, and it runs over MIDI. So you plug it into your system, and then you can configure all of the knobs and the faders and stuff that you've got connected to it, which you can hand solder and then, stick on a plate and make them into custom MIDI controllers. And it's just a really cool idea. So I'll flip through this. This is if you go to Shantea Controls, SHANTEA controls.com. So this is the OpenDeck platform. There are different ones. So you get powerful. You get a web configuration service, and they've basically built all of these MIDI. So for various people that customized MIDI controllers. There's one with a touch screen here, and you can just program it up, and it just goes on various different Arduino boards. And there are different versions of them. I'm just trying to think. There's the OpenDeck platform one, which is the big one, which is $149, but you can get one for $45 or $50. And it struck me as a really good idea because, I mean, you don't need all that much soldering skills. You could just kind of stick a load of knobs and faders together and configure it however you want, and then sort of make it into a MIDI controller. Gaz, I can see you were thrilled by this.
Yeah, I thought it's the accessibility of it really, and the fact that it's just another step closer for people who want to make something, but a little like myself, I suppose, but a bit scared to. It just sort of seems to think, look at it and go, okay, I could get my head around how I could actually do that. But yeah, I thought it was really good. I'm always really interested to see new ideas and anything that sort of makes the creation of a new idea really easy. I think it's brilliant because then it means that you spend more time on refining the idea and less time on having to do that annoying middle bit. That's what this seems to do. It seems to.
Yeah, you have to. There is a bit of figuring out, but USB MIDI in and out, 64 digital inputs for buttons and 32 inputs for encoders, 48 outputs with PWM support. That's for LEDs, so you can fade RGB LEDs, and 32 inputs for analog pots or FSRs. I don't know what FSRs are, but someone might know that. It's kind of cool. I don't know. I'm guessing, Dominic, are you that kind of guy? Would you do that?
Yeah. I'm definitely that kind of guy. I love building that kind of stuff to solve things. So this here is sort of one of those inside it. This is a MIDI through box, but each of the outputs you can switch on and off the MIDI clock. So if you're firing off a whole bunch of little sequences, like I've got Mother 32s and stuff, as soon as you hit go on your master, everything fires off with the sequences. But with this, you can just stop the MIDI clock, and then if you start it again, it'll push it to the nearest beat or bar. So it's just a really easy way of starting and stopping external sequences. And inside there is really the guts of what that guy's put together. So you have to know.
Have you done it on Arduino or a Pi?
It's a Teensy, which is like an Arduino. Yeah. So there's a thing called an Arduino. Most people will know. It's a little computer board, really nice and embedded, really fast. And there's a Teensy, which is like its brother. And that's really geared towards MIDI. If you just plug one of them in, it becomes a MIDI device. So you don't have to write any clever MIDI stuff. But in here, what you've got is a Teensy. I've had to write the code for it that routes all the MIDI through and filters out the clock and stuff. And I like doing that stuff, but obviously, it's not something that everyone can do, and it's not something everyone wants to do. So what this guy's done is he's taken the Arduino Teensy thing, and he's done all the wiring and all of the configuration that allows you to get 64 inputs rather than the 28 or something that it comes with. He's done the MIDI interfaces so they're all isolated and ready to be called, and all the hard work really. And also he's written what looks like to be a kind of web configurable thing in there that says, right, this pin, I'm going to connect it to a potentiometer, and this is going to turn up and down the volume and that kind of stuff. So he really has done all the work, and you're getting one of these really, but with all of the building blocks already in place, and it's really cheap and it's open source. So I was at one stage I was going to start kind of selling these things, but there's no point now, because that kind of stuff means everyone can do it. And really, unless you're manufacturing these things at very high volumes, you can't sell them for more than 40 or 50 quid tops, I would imagine. It's just not worth it. But it's brilliant now that the technology with Arduinos and Teensies is around that allows you to do this stuff, which you just couldn't have done 5 or 6 years ago. The processors on there are fast enough not to hinder any of the MIDI, no latency. Really, they run off batteries if you want. It's phenomenal. And you can full marks, absolutely full marks. He's done all the work. What they really do need is a case. If someone can build a decent case that will allow you to put 5-pin DINs in, just a little bit, because I've had to drill this,
that's a
there
real
isn't
drag,
there isn't a bog standard case that allows you to put an Arduino in and say 10 or 15 connectors on it, because you could drop down to those little jack style MIDI sockets if you wanted to, but that's the problem. And by the time you spent a tenner on a case and drilled it, I don't ever want to do that again.
No, that's a nightmare, drilling holes in cases. I can thoroughly. Yeah, I think I was going to say something there which I completely lost. What I like is, even after all this time, there's still a new product and sort of micro economy around the MIDI standard. I think that's absolutely awesome. I don't know, Rich. Could you see yourself kind of having something like this made for your live setup, where you could just go, this would be very useful for, I could just have this little box that would do stuff that I need to be done? Or are you not that guy?
If it was built by somebody other than me, yeah.
Okay, yeah, fair enough. You're not the DIY making.
Not really.
No, okay.
Not really.
Fair dues. I sort of am, and I love doing that sort of stuff. And like I said,
I respect the fact that people are, and I like doing it when I do it. But generally speaking, no.
It's time, I suppose. I think the thing about it is, it's like an extension of the concept of, when you're trying to get your studio set up right, it's like an extension of that workflow thing. You're essentially inventing stuff on the hoof, and you kind of just want it to work. I do, like I say, I was talking to Dom about this, these little pies, I write them to do various bits and bobs, and they're just really flipping useful for all sorts of stuff. So, makes I like the idea that you could get one of these and just build your own MIDI controller. And I don't think it would be that difficult. I mean, you'd have to sort the power out and a few other things, but I think everything else is pretty much there. So, yeah, good shout, Gaz. I think that's worth mentioning because like I said, he was interested in advertising, and it's so niche that it's probably more interesting just to talk about it and go, this is what you could potentially do with it. So I'm going to just plug it one more time. It's Chantier Controls, so SHANTEA controls.com, and it's the OpenDeck. If you look for the OpenDeck, build custom MIDI controllers with ease. There we go. How's that? That'll do. Right, I think we're probably due to finish up. So next week, like I say, next week's the last one before Christmas. Then we're back on the 2nd of January. So we're just missing one show this week at this Christmas. So I hope if you can't join us next week, you'll all enjoy your Christmas period, whether you're celebrating that or just taking a break. And don't forget, if you want to enter to win a copy of iZotope's RX7, we're looking for the hashtag RXCanFixIt and the hashtag RX7 to @Sonicstate and @iZotope Inc. And also don't forget, we got SynchroArts 16th of December for those final deals: Vocaline Pro 4 $249, Revoice Pro $419, and Vocaline Project 3 $99. Right, guys, thank you very much. Rich, I don't know where you are now. I was hoping we might see a road sign going past. Do you know where you are in the world? How far have you travelled up? Have you passed anywhere of significance that you've spotted? I guess you're not facing in the right direction.
No, I have no idea where I'm at.
On the motorway. Well, Rich, I think you're breaking up, but it's been lovely to have you. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
It's been a pleasure, and have a great gig in Glasgow and beyond. We'll see you soon.
Thank you. Thanks. See you soon, Nick. Happy holidays, everybody. Merry Christmas.
Yeah, thank you very much. And also, Gaz Williams, thank you very much for joining us. We're looking forward to seeing you again in person soon. So I hope the traffic's not too bad. I don't know what. I felt so confident going into that sentence, and then I didn't know where I was going.
Well, yeah, I'm going to. I'm quite looking forward to this evening. I think I'm going to have a session, like a Skype session with the Noodler guys. I don't know, behind me. I don't know. Let me see if you could see the little rig. Oh, behind me there. Oh, I've got the Noodler in the middle of that setup now, and. So I'm going to actually have a little Skype session with the guys, and we're going to go over some of some more of the features of it. And I've been mentioned it. I mentioned the Noodler last week, and it's just something I'm having an awful lot of fun with. And it hypnotized me yesterday. I swear, it was.
Did you get into modular time?
Everything was just so beautiful, and the way it was all evolving, and the way that we had the LFOs were kind of changing the chord steps, and everything that was happening in this really lovely way that I was just kind of frozen, but I didn't want to stop it. I must have listened to it for about an hour, so it was yeah, really, really cool. So
good.
I'm
right.
Quite excited about that. Right.
Excellent. Well, I'm glad you're enjoying it.
Thank you very much.
You're
Happy
welcome.
holidays to everybody, and yeah, see you next time.
And also, Dominic, thank you for joining us too. Nice to see you.
Thank you very much.
To see your mood lighting in such full effect in the studio. Very nice.
I'll see what I can find for next time.
Right, okay, that's it for this week. Thank you very much, everybody. We'll see you all next week if you can make it. Take care now. Bye.
Cheers.